Well, welcome back, everybody. We're really excited to be doing this again. And if you're just jumping in for the first time, we have a new series that we're doing in Mechanic Falls at the Vineyard. It's called Joining Jesus in the Restoration of All Things. It's more than just a sermon series. Really what we're trying to do is we're trying to tell the story of who we are in Mechanic Falls, and also to tell the story of being followers of Christ and being in this greater narrative, this humongous story of God moving here on the earth. And we're really excited this week. We're joined by MollyKate Mosher, who's also my mother-in-law. This is getting a little familial, isn't it? Like where I had my mom and dad in 1 week, and now I have my mother-in-law. So we'll try to not make that weird. But we're really excited to be having these conversations. And we think these conversations are so important because when Jesus said, "See, I make all things new," all things, I mean, it's almost so big that it can feel like it means nothing. And so it's important to not keep things obtuse, but to be specific and start telling sharing the stories and talking about the specifics of what those things are to the best of our ability and to the best of our understanding as we're on this journey. So, hey, thanks for being here. It's going to be a good time. I appreciate you coming.
So this week we're diving into like how Jesus restores us to God. Obviously, we have all encountered Jesus, and we've been invited into the very first restorative thing, which is God loves me and you and his creation so much that he didn't want to leave us in a state of being lost, of being broken, and he sent his son Jesus to take care of that, to restore us to him. And, I think that's just so important as somebody who wants to partner with Jesus and like do the things that Jesus does and partner with the Holy Spirit. I think it's crucial. It's very critical for the person who loves Jesus to always keep at the forefront of their mind that the moment where like the light bulb went on and to like recount those stories. It definitely necessitates, like when we're talking about like, okay, joining Jesus in the restoration of all things, it makes me like ask questions. Okay, so if we're joining Jesus, like who is Jesus to you? I think that's a very important question. Like even if you are a follower of Jesus, it's always good to have that in front of you. Who is Jesus? And then like, okay, so what is he actually restoring?
And I want to back up a little bit as well and touch on a thing that you just said. It's healthy to hear people's testimonies.
Absolutely.
Of when God like came and just messed them up and in the most wonderful, beautiful way. And it is important also for us all to be able to not forget and share our story and our testimony as well. And it reminds me of so many things, but one primary thing that I always need to be reminded of is like, this isn't about joining some club.
No.
I mean, yes, to become a follower of Jesus, you get welcomed into a big family. We talk a lot about John Wimber, and he has so many funny quotes, and I think that's why we talk a lot about him. My favorite, maybe a top 5 favorite quote from him is he says that he says, Jesus is coming back for his bride, and that's right. The Church of Christ is a bride, and she's a big woman. So yes, as you say yes to Jesus, you're now part of this big family, this big thing, and that's important. But also, the the really big deal here is that you're reconciled to the Father.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. And the implications of that for not just me, for all of us is huge. And that's really what this is about, is it's about reconciliation, and
It is.
and it's about restoration, and it's about becoming a new creation also. And it's a mystery. There's a lot about it we don't understand, but there's something that we've all experienced. So I just wanted to back up and kind of celebrate that, and celebrate that, if you haven't started your journey with Jesus yet, it's not about becoming a member at a bowling league. Right?
Does it have to be bowling?
It doesn't have to be bowling, but you know what I mean.
You don't get a t-shirt.
Like,
well, maybe.
Yeah,
maybe
it's like,
get a t-shirt.
it's like I just think of all these goofy things that we always, I'm part of Sam's Club. What is Sam's Club?
Membership.
Like,
I get a discount on
yeah,
gas
right.
now.
Like that's not what it's about. So.
I grew up in Connecticut in a pretty wealthy family. I was the last kid, and it was during the 70s where my parents decided that, they raised their kids and they kind of left my brother and I to ourselves. So we got into a lot of trouble. We came from a conservative Catholic family, but to the end of their journey of having all of these kids, I think they just thought, we could be left alone. And so my brother and I probably got in the most trouble. So there was a lot of partying and lying to my parents of where we were going and things like that. But just staying in a bubble of, they're good parents, but we were in a lot of trouble. So, and then went to college and wanted to have a career. At that time, if you said, you want to be a mom as a career, that wasn't something that you would say in public, because it was really pushed on you that you had to have this career, and that being a mom would probably be, third world country or secondary to something that's good.
Like you're a failure.
Yeah.
Or like you're not
Detrimental
really
to
realizing your potential.
Yeah. So even if I wanted to be a mom, which I think I did deep down inside, and be married, I didn't feel as if I could have that voice at the time. So it was just part of the culture, and that culture began in the 60s, but it continues in even, gosh, I can't even, doesn't seem like the same culture as now. It's even worse, I think. But so yes, so I found myself in college having a grand old time, had so much fun with all my friends, we were partying, and had a boyfriend, and then I ended up getting pregnant. So that kind of just stopped my life completely. And there was something inside my Catholic upbringing that said, I'm not just going to abort. I'm not going to...
And did you feel like pressure too?
Yes.
Okay.
Actually, my parents recommended it.
Yeah.
So that was a tough one. And with my journey with that, that's a whole different other story, but I just decided that there's just no way that I could do that. So I found myself in a pickle. I found myself in, like, all of a sudden when I thought that I was, I had everything going for me, and I just felt like I was self-made, like I was going to make my destiny. And then all of a sudden I was pregnant, and then I felt like I was this small. I felt so tiny and helpless, and didn't have the support of my boyfriend, who at the time was pretty shooken up about it also. So my parents just said, you need to get married right away. So we got married, and found that he didn't want to be married, and stopped talking to me, and I was getting bigger and bigger, and I was working, and just fell on the floor one day and called my boss and said, I can't go to work today, and cried my eyes out and just called on God and said, I can't do this, Lord. I'm going to have a baby, and my husband is not talking to me, not even like pass the salt type of thing. I mean, he didn't talk to me at all, and I didn't have the friends that I needed, because all my friends were still in college partying, and they didn't know what to do with me. And I felt myself quite alone. And from there, I just cried out to God, and I had a knock on the door, and my brother, who was my oldest brother, he was a missionary and knew Jesus, and he decided to visit me because he was in Connecticut, and he said, I'm just going to visit MollyKate. And he came in he shared Christ with me. He shared Psalm 103 that talked about a father pitying his child, and how much he loved me, and how my sin is so far from me as far as the east is from the west. And when he read that scripture, I just asked the Lord into my heart, and I hadn't been the same ever since.
What did you experience in that moment? I mean,
Yeah, it was like a relief. Like I all of a sudden felt like God knew me, and he was watching me.
and that wasn't something you felt necessarily before.
No, because I think I was just masked in a lot of decisions that I made that were not right. So I never thought that God would come toward me because of my sin. And when the whole scripture about the east is from the west, I just the truth. I think really what it comes down to is that like the truth sets us free, right?
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of ministry out there, but there's nothing like the truth that sets us free. And at that time, the truth just set me free, and he just came like a flood, and he rescued me. And I was still pregnant. I still had a husband that wasn't talking to me. But all of a sudden, I just felt like, okay, I'm loved, and he actually loves me. So it was pretty cool. Yeah.
And then what was the journey from there? You know, I mean,
Yeah,
so you're pregnant.
Exactly.
And,
Yes. So
and did you, I mean, I know aspects of the story, so I feel like I'm leading a little bit, but you guys, so you and your husband at the time, when did you guys decide to split? Was that pre-baby, after baby? I actually don't even know the answer to that story.
Okay. So after maybe like a week after that, I decided to move home and just decided to hang out with my family, who a lot of them were born again Christians, and we'd go to church with them, and they just mentored me. My sister-in-law, especially Linda, she was my mom, kind of in a lot of ways. Although my parents were around and they were obviously supportive too, but she was a born again Christian, and she just poured into me, just poured. And it was very difficult at the time. It wasn't like but I was so clinging to God, and I was so clinging to the truth. The Bible was just amazing to me. I would open it up, and everything was personal. Everything was like, you are speaking to me. He just literally does that to us.
Just comes alive.
It comes alive.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's the living word.
Yeah.
And he just all of a sudden says, guess what? You were all alone in this world, and you were just trying to figure out what to do and how to do it right. And now I'm telling you that you are actually mine, and I have a plan for you, and you're my daughter, and I am never going to leave you, and I'm never going to forsake you. And all of these things could be happening to you, but you will always be mine. And that's what makes life so different. It's not the circumstances that always, like, you think these circumstances are going to break me, and they would have, but they didn't. And I just got stronger in him, and actually so strong, and living at my parents' house, and finishing up college, and having the baby Ryan born, and then living there till she was
Just to be clear,
4.
Ryan is a girl.
Ryan is a girl. My son-in-law has married a female.
Named Ryan.
Very, very good. Okay.
And then, so this happens, and at that time, you're a single mom, right? And I mean, there must have still been a lot of struggle in that time.
Yes, absolutely. So during that time, when I was still with Ryan's dad, and I couldn't figure out if I should stay with him or not. So he wasn't a believer, but and some things happened that seemed like I could legally part from him biblically. I'm not legally. I'm sorry, biblically. And so half my family said, leave him. The other half said, stay with him. He could get saved at his deathbed type of thing. And so for 2 or 3 years, we didn't do anything. I mean, I still saw him on occasion, like on weekends. He lived in New Hampshire and I lived in Connecticut. And so for 3 years, I couldn't figure out the right thing to do.
Yeah, it must have been really hard.
Which is really hard. And it's just another, there's decisions that you have to make that God doesn't always give you the answer right away.
That's right.
And that was one of them. So it was a back and forth. And so finally I just decided, because there was a fear inside me that said, well, if I may not ever marry again. Like, who would want to marry me if I had a child? And especially I would want to marry a Christian. So I was like, it came to the point where I was like, all right, if I never marry again, I'm just going to do this. Because I just didn't think I had no grace for it. So, so we divorced, and then I was single I lived with my parents most of the time, and finished college and worked, and my mom and dad took care of Ryan, and they loved that, and it was good. It was so good. Yeah.
I remember a good friend of ours, Rodney LaFrance, and I was a teenager, probably 17 around that time. And I remember talking with Rodney about sin because he was like a monk to me. This guy was like Saint Francis of Assisi, right? He looked like a monk. He acted like he was just a man of peace. Like, he was just incredible and like oozed wisdom and truth. And I don't know, he was just a beautiful human who loved the Lord, and still does. And I remember talking to him and being like, and him being like, yeah, I struggle with sin. I'm like, oh yeah? What do you struggle with? And he goes, yeah, I struggle with pride. And I'm like, pride is on the list? Like, I never even thought of pride as a sin. You know, it's like, I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, bro, I'm going to hell. I really was like, I am so screwed. I forgot about
you
know, it's like, it just seems so like.
It's like the worst one too.
No, it is, right? It is. It's so like, just evil.
It's so subtle and destructive.
So subtle and creepy. And anyway, but there hasn't been enough permission for us in the church, the wider church, to be very real and honest, transparent about the unoriginalness of all of our sin.
Yeah.
And to like call out the sins that feel extra gross and dirty. Yeah. To just say like, the Lord, his blood is more than sufficient.
Yeah.
His mercies are new every morning. His mercies are new every morning. As far as the east is from the west. Yeah. You know, like, he turns ashes into beauty. He gives hope to the hopeless. Yep. He restores our night into dancing. It's like, I just love who Jesus is and want to like call out and say, I was a dirtbag that he made brand new. And now my life has been forever changed.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I want to parachute now back into your story, because I think the next chapter of your life is profoundly beautiful.
Yes. You mean when I met Ben?
Let's talk about Ben with that mustache and that mullet. This bush pilot from Alaska came.
It's a long story, so I don't want to bore you with all the details, but the Lord showed me just when I was walking with him and trying to be, just trying to make up for my kind of yucky life. I just wanted to serve him, and so I decided to tell God that I wasn't going to date anybody, and if he wanted me to marry, he's going to have to throw him right in front of my lap, type of thing. No, not on my lap, because that wouldn't be appropriate. But
throw him in front of the car.
Met in a strip club.
Yeah, no.
Ben was.
I met him at a strip club, and no, I met him through these. I was friends with somebody, and I loved their parents, and this fella, their son was in Alaska, and they had a picture of him on their fridge, and I said to the Lord, I love these guys so much that I could probably marry that guy without even knowing him. And lo and behold, he wasn't even walking with the Lord, actually. But so long story short, we ended up getting married. And we had a very lovely courtship, I guess that's an old-fashioned word again, where he came from a lot of, sexual sin, pornography issues, and I came from, obviously, just told you, we decided to date quite in faith. We just were friends, and everybody wanted us together in our friend group. There was like 20 of us that were all kind of getting paired up in this volleyball place that we used to go to, and we're all young and having little Bible studies and stuff. And they were kind of like, "Oh, Ben and you," and of course I was smitten for him. He was dead quiet, incredibly shy, and and there was a couple guys around that I think liked me, and they would always try to get to Ryan. They'd always be like, "Oh, Ryan," and they'd just play with her and like sit down and put blocks with her and stuff like that.
That's the entry into the friend zone.
That was right.
Show you the paternal
and
potential here.
Yeah, exactly. But I just didn't like anybody. And when Ben showed up, Ryan loved him, but he didn't try to push himself on Ryan. She just was drawn to him. And of course, we were always together because I was always with his parents. And so we had a very casual friendship for a couple of months, and then he asked me to marry him.
Wow.
So basically, we didn't do anything until we got married. And we got married, and when he asked me to marry him, I closed my eyes and I said, "Lord, this is crazy, but I'm going to say yes. I'm going to trust you in this because I really don't feel as if I know him," right? Because you're so used to how the world does it, that you were just going to walk in faith and know that it was going to, and he was taking a risk on me, and I was taking a risk on him, and we ended up getting married. So there we go.
And have 9 children.
Yes, we have 9 children, and
who are quite literally some of my favorite human beings. They're just all incredible.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you guys did a good job.
Yeah, I mean, it was the Lord. So there's a lot to unpack there, but I think what I do want to say is that this is all testimony, and our testimony is not just our one big story, but our testimony is a page of your story.
Yeah.
And I've been reminded of that lately because
that's really good.
Sometimes we forget how powerful our testimony is. And just share a page. That doesn't take long. You can share a page, a moment with the Lord, or something happened, or there was a brokenness and he restored it. That page helps somebody else realize how precious God is.
Yeah.
Because we have to tell our story, because we have lost a lot of lost people, and I just want to be able to share my story more with people than I have been in the past. I've been very busy, with raising kids and stuff, but now they're getting older, married, grandkids. But it's important to always tell our story, no matter how long we've been on this journey with the Lord.
Yeah.
It's very powerful.
It's very powerful.
Yeah.
That's great.
That's great.